Hi, and welcome to the Sit Down with Suzanne show. I'm your host, Suzanne. So, if you guys remember the last show I did, I talked about going to Atlanta for the She Podcast event. I can't wait to share all the details with you guys about it. For those of you who follow me on social media, I have shared so many pictures and just feedback from just what an amazing event it was. I did not get to record an episode when I was there. I did bring all my equipment, did log it all on the plane, but unfortunately didn't get a chance to do it. But here's why. I was having so much fun. I was meeting people all day. We began in the morning around 8:30, went till 11 at night, and actually I had taken schoolwork with me and then stayed up late, got the homework done just so I wouldn't miss any event during the day. But I am telling you, this event was spectacular. I had so much fun. I met so many people. I learned so much, just so many connections, and I absolutely cannot wait to connect with everybody. Got back, just jumped right back into work, into school, doing all the things that I do. So I haven't really had an opportunity to even come down off the high from that event. I haven't had an opportunity to really look at all the business cards I collected and just get everyone in my contact information, follow people on social media. We had started that when we were there. We've taken tons of pictures, but I'm telling you, it was an incredible event. And for those of you who listened to the last episode, and I hope you did, I said that I had found this group on Facebook and found out that they were having a conference. It was actually their very first conference. It's run by these two incredible women, Jess and Elsie. And I decided I was going to go to this conference, and it was just one of the best decisions that I've ever made. From the very first night, I was just welcomed, and everybody was. There were so many different women. It's called the She Podcast for a reason, because it's all about women who podcast, women who have had a podcast for a long time, those who are just starting out, those who are planning to start a podcast. And we had the opportunity to be surrounded by like-minded females. There was no ego, there was no jealousy, there was no envy. There was just women celebrating each other, uplifting each other, and encouraging each other. And I'm so glad that I was a part of it. Somebody asked me at the event, were you nervous? And, I truly wasn't. And, I've shared this on my social media pages, and, and for those of you who have spoken to me, I've said this, I made a decision a very long time ago to, whatever I do, wherever I go, I'm going to be me 100% of the time. And people will either accept me or they won't. But I will say that I was 100% authentically, unapologetically Suzanne, and I was accepted. It just, you felt the love in the room. Everybody was just there to celebrate each other. So it was a great event. I'm sure there's going to be so many different things coming out of this event, so many different contacts, so many different opportunities. And, like I said, I haven't had a chance to really sit down and put everything in perspective and, connect with everybody. But I do know that I'm following a few on social media. I know that some were able to do a show right from the event. But if you have started a podcast or you're thinking of starting a podcast, I'd encourage you to, find a community, because this community that I found is awesome. So, just a little bit about the last show. So the last show I did, I talked about finding your purpose, and I've gotten some really great feedback in regards to that, because, a lot of people have asked me the question, well, how do you know you've found your purpose? And, personally for me, I think it's consistently evolving, because I'm consistently growing, right? So my purpose, I know, is aligned with my faith. My purpose is aligned with who I aspire to be in terms of being a positive influence to others, and in terms of being an inspiration, motivational, in terms of being a blessing to others. And, I desire to help people, and I try to help people, sometimes in big doses, sometimes in small doses. And I know that my purpose is aligned with that. And, the things that I am doing now, helping others, coaching others, mentoring others, empowering others, that is absolutely aligned with my purpose. And I'm just so grateful and humbled by what God is doing in my life, and, the path that He's leading me on, and, the opportunities that He has put in my way, and some of the things that He has blocked from me. I really, truly do appreciate it. And I know that, like I said, I am still finding my purpose, but where I am right now is exactly where I need to be. So continue to chase your dreams, continue to follow after your goals, continue to find your purpose, and, dig down deep. And it's your purpose, not your parents' purpose, not your spouse's purpose, not your kids' purpose, not even your boss's purpose, but what your purpose is. And I guarantee you that you'll be a lot happier if you either found your purpose or you're pursuing your purpose. I'm happy. I'm filled with joy, and things aren't always 100% the way I would like them. But I have faith that things will turn around. I have faith that things will get better. And as long as I'm seeking God first, I know that everything will be okay. Um, you know, Part of my jam, and I should say my whole jam, is positivity. And I believe in positive thinking. I believe in doing things for others that are positive. And, that truly comes from my faith in God, and, just who I am as a person. It's all God. And, I'm very proud of that. I've never been ashamed of saying that. And I think the beautiful thing is that everybody that knows me knows that, and they have embraced that, whether they are new in their faith, whether they're older in their faith, or whether they're haven't found their faith yet. I do truly appreciate that everybody understands that's where I come from, and have accepted me. And I think that all we can do is accept others and allow others to be themselves. So I know that every episode I've talked about, I've asked you guys to write into me. It's Suzanne at positivelysuzanne.com. And, I've read your letters and your feedback. And this week, instead of reading the letters, I actually had someone, ask me a question like, doesn't that get annoying being positive all the time? And, what I say to her, it really doesn't. I mean, I don't have to try. You just are. And it's a conscious decision that you have to make. It doesn't mean that you ignore the bad things. It doesn't mean that bad things don't happen. But I think, like I mentioned earlier, is having faith that it will turn around. And instead of focusing on the negative aspect, I try to focus on the positive. So this did not happen, but out of that, this is what happened. And, even if out of the whole disaster, if a disaster happens, what I learned is a lesson, and I learned how to do it differently next time. That's good enough for me. But you know what? It does take conditioning. It doesn't mean that I don't get mad. It doesn't mean that I don't get unhappy sometimes. It doesn't mean that I don't get sad. But I think that in everything that I do, I really do try to see the positive, and I try to encourage others to see the positive. And the more you practice something, the better you get at it. So positivity is my jam. And if you come around me, you're going to be bombarded by positivity. You're going to be bombarded by positive news, positive vibes, and I'm going to try to impart that in you, because I want you to experience life with joy. You can choose to be unhappy, but I tell you, life is a whole lot better when you're happy. So, I'm not sure if she took my answer to heart, but she did listen. But, I just think that sometimes we tend to focus on the negative. The news is negative. The just work sometimes is negative. School's negative. People are negative. You're driving on the highway, it's negative. But you don't have to feed into that. And I absolutely refuse to. I don't want to live my life focused on the negative. So I'm going to celebrate the joy of life. I'm going to celebrate waking up every day. I'm going to celebrate being in my right mind, celebrate, walking, talking, eating, and all these things. So I hope that, just listen to the show and listen to others, that you will aspire to be positive in all you do. So, this week's episode, I actually wanted to talk about something. It's a line that I say, and I think I've said it on the show before: I have never met a stranger. And, it's something that I try to live by. And every time I meet somebody, and believe me, it's not everybody that I meet is happy to meet me. And, sometimes they're just like, why is she even smiling? But I don't let their negative vibes impact my positive vibes, right? So I will talk to anybody. And, that's one of the reasons why I went to the conference. I knew absolutely no one. I joined a group on Facebook, and, I've posted, and somebody, may have responded, and they've posted and I've responded. But the funny thing is, I don't remember meeting any of the persons that I had interacted with in the group at the event. I knew absolutely no one when I walked out that Thursday night. But I tell you that by the time I walked out, I had so many just females that I had connected with, that like just the minute I walked in, I was embraced. I was having conversations. I was talking. I was laughing. I was sitting at a table. I was here. I was there. I thought I was just going to go in for a few minutes, hang around and all of that, and then just leave. But no, that just didn't happen. So I've said that I've never met a stranger. I have no problem talking to people, or, just going to a party, knowing no one, and, just being the life of the party and having fun. So, quick story. I'm in Atlanta, and the conference doesn't start till, you check in at 5 o'clock, and the conference doesn't start until in the evening, which is the kickoff party. And I'd gotten from the airport. They actually allowed early check-in. Marriott, the Atlanta Marriott Marquis, outstanding hotel. I actually have to write my review about it. Just beautiful place, great service. I had an outstanding time there, and I would recommend that hotel anytime. So go to the hotel, beautiful. They actually allowed me to check in early, because, I went to the concierge and I said, hey, I'm here for a conference. Is there any way I can leave my bags? I wanted to go explore, because I'm in Atlanta. I've never been, and I wanted to explore these places. And he's like, go over there and see if they have early checkout. Sometimes they do. I go over. It's like 11 o'clock in the morning. I've never had early check-in like that. And they said, oh, absolutely. So they checked me in. I didn't have the kids with me this time. So I had gotten a beautiful view and a king size bed. Now, I can't remember the last time I've slept in a king size bed, by myself. Because, the kids, the husband, somebody's always with me. And, long time ago, before the second kid, I used to travel for work, but I no longer travel that much. So I go, in this room, I relax for a bit, and then I'm like, what, let me go exploring. I'm thinking, okay, there's Martin Luther King's things I could explore. They're saying the House of Coca-Cola, Football Hall of Fame. There's all these places that I can go. So I go downstairs and I say to the concierge, well, what should I do? He's giving me all these places, and he gave me this thing with this place called Ponce Market that had all these shops, and it's a really beautiful place. So don't tell my husband this, but I'm not good at directions, and he says it all the time, but I always tell him, no, I'm very good at direction, but he really is very good at direction. He can go to a place once and remember it. I don't. Anyway, so he was like, the concierge said to me to just walk this way, and it's like two minutes down the road, whatever. I'm like, all right, I'll walk. So I said, should I take a bus, jump in an Uber? And I'd never taken an Uber before, by the way. I don't need to. I drive everywhere. So I get out of the hotel and I'm walking, and I'm like, all right, I have the GPS on my phone. I'm walking. I don't know where I'm going, and I'm walking around, and I see this lady, and I don't know, for some reason, she just looked beautiful, well put together. I'm like, yeah, she knew she was going, and she had her headphones in. And I say to her, like, hi, excuse me, I'm lost. I'm looking for hair. And she said she was lost also. So, okay, here we are both in Atlanta. She was visiting from LA, and she was also lost. She was looking for Centennial Park. So we were actually looking for this, similar places, because I wanted to go. It was in that vicinity. So we're looking and we're going up and down, and I'm like, okay, we have the GPS. So we walk that way, and I was like, okay. So finally she was just like we're taking an Uber. And oh, so I'm like, no, I'm like, no, we can find this. She's like, no, I'm done. We're taking an Uber. So we ended up taking an Uber. We had gone in the opposite direction anyway. So I guess we could have kept walking. So I took an Uber. Well, we took an Uber, and it was my first time taking an Uber because, like I said, I've never taken an Uber before. And I didn't even have an Uber account or anything. She was like, no, I got this. So we go to the Centennial Park, and, we looked around. There was this huge Ferris wheel in the middle of Atlanta, right? So we look at it, and then we're just, walking around. And, the funny thing is, like, we had this instant connection. Like, we knew each other. We were talking. We were joking. We were just talking about so many different things. I had never met her before. Her name is Trisha. And like I said, she was out from LA on business. And just like I said, we just instantly connected. And we were hungry. So we're like, all right, let's go eat. So we go to the Waffle House. Now, I've heard about the Waffle House, right? And I'm never been, right? So I was like, all right, I'm going to go to Waffle House. We go in, they say, sit anywhere. Like, all right, yay. So I sit down and I'm ready to have some chicken and waffles. So a young man comes over, and he was like, what do you want to order? So I was like, yeah, I'm ready for, to order chicken and waffles. And he was like, we have grilled chicken. I was like, what do you mean? Grilled chicken. Now, I'm all about healthy kick. I'm on a healthy kick most of the times, right? So he was like, we have grilled chicken. I'm like, grilled chicken and waffles? Yeah, I was not happy. So I was like, okay, can we go? Because I just can't eat grilled chicken and waffles. But anyway, we ended up leaving. We got out. We were walking, trying to find a restaurant, and we ended up finding a restaurant. Had a great meal. I think the name of the restaurant was Ted's. It was a great meal, and we were talking this whole time. Like I just said, actually having a really deep conversation, just about everything, just about life, and it was like I said, we were so connected. Anyway, she had to leave because she was in town for something, and then she, went away. And then I went back, and, I did the walk around. I didn't actually go inside and do any tours. I saw, went back to Centennial Park. I checked out the Coca-Cola museum or factory where, I took some pictures there, the Football Hall of Fame. There was the aquarium. So I took pictures, and then I walked back. And I'm proud to say I was able to walk back to the hotel without getting lost. And it was really good, and anyway, she was in town for something, and she had actually invited me to a party that they were having that night, and I knew that I had the other party, so I went to one party, and then after we left that party, I ended up going to the party that she'd invited me to. And then, met some other great people there, people I'd never met, just completely, amazing individuals. We were having the just conversation, and like I said, complete strangers, but it just, like I said, I've never met a stranger. So after their party, we went out to this place to eat. Again, I don't even remember the name of the place, but, it was a good place. There's some really good food. I finally got my fried chicken. I got chicken wings and french fries. And yeah, it was late at night, and then they ended up going somewhere. But then I was like, no, I needed to go back because I knew that I had homework to do, and the conference was starting the next day. And it was just incredible. Had a really great time. And she actually had recommended this place called Mary Mac's, and she had said she had eaten there the day before and had really great food. And I ended up going there a couple of days later. A friend of mine that lives in Atlanta that I hadn't seen in years, ended up connecting with her. We had went out to lunch. We went there. Great place, great food, all of that. But I had this just incredible connection with a complete stranger that I met on the street. And the only thing we had in common is that we were lost. And so I want to encourage you, go meet a stranger. And then you'll find out you've never met a stranger. And if the person that you say hi to or, doesn't want to be friendly, that's okay. But you be friendly, because you know what? When we close ourselves off to being open to strangers and things like that, we miss moments, we miss connection. Like I said, it was just great. Like this connection that we had, like this random stranger that I met on the street, and we talked. And you know what? We exchanged numbers and things like that. And I might see her again and we could become great friends, or I may never see her again. But I've had that experience that it's a part of my life, it's a part of my history. And it was a moment that was fantastic. So that's all I'm encouraging you to do. If you go out there, you're not looking for your soulmate. You're not looking for your best friend. You're not looking for a boss, a lover, or anything. You're just making a connection, and it could be a one-time, simply amazing connection that never gets repeated, or it could be the start of a long-lasting friendship. But whatever it is, say hello to a stranger. So that's my encouragement. You never know what's out there. You never know what's going to happen to you, if you go out there. But I'm not telling you not to be safe. So don't do anything crazy, like, things, still practice safety. But I'm just saying, somebody at work, somebody new started at work, and, you have nobody has spoken to them. You go over and say hi. The person at the coffee shop that you always see, say hello. It doesn't even have to be a conversation. Just say hi. Just say hello. Just smile at somebody. It's like when I was coming back, right? I had on a necklace. So I bought this necklace, gorgeous necklace. I love fabulous pieces, by the way. And I remember wearing this necklace to the final day, and I got a lot of compliments on it. I was leaving. And when I came back when we were at the airport, I was in line, and this young lady, she was looking at me, and she was looking at me hard. And I was like, okay, all right, like I'm not sure what's happening here. And then we were on this, I'm not quite sure, the Atlanta airport, and like, no, I didn't think that airport was going to be busy, but it was insane how busy it is. And they had these little tracks, like you go up, you go down, you go up, you go down. I am not quite sure who designed that maze, but like I felt like I was playing in a jungle gym or trying to find my way out of a maze. But she comes over to me and she was like, when she comes around me, she was like, yo, your necklace is fire. I was like, okay, thank you. But like the way she was looking at me and coming at me, I'm telling you, like, you would think this girl was just going to come try to like knock me out or something. But no, you have to be open. So I was very open. My face was smiling. My posture was welcoming, things like that. I didn't get an attitude. It's same thing when I was on the flight attendant, she, again, like, I don't understand, like, why women have to, like, clock each other so hard sometimes. But she was looking at me like I took the wrong seat. And she was like looking at me hard. And then she came over to me and then she was like, I like your necklace. I said, thank you. She's like, today's my birthday. I said, oh, happy birthday. But I'm not giving you my necklace because it's my birthday month. But it was just so funny. Like sometimes how people approach people and, your perception of them, how it could impact the way you react to them. So each time I saw them looking at me, and I was like, okay, these are some angry people. I'm just like, my posture is open. I am welcoming. I have a half smile on my face because I'm not looking for a fight. I mean, really, I'm an adult. I'm going to fight. But you know what? So amazing things can happen when you open yourself up to meeting a stranger. Amazing things can happen when you say hi to somebody. And I know sometimes, people like, you're on a flight, you don't want to talk. And I will be honest with you. I don't want to talk to somebody for, if I'm on a 4 hour flight or something like that. I don't want to talk for 4 hours with somebody. But it's okay to lean across and say hello to your seatmate. It's okay to talk about the latest book that you're reading. Have a conversation. And a lot of times we are so caught up with looking at our electronics that we miss the things that are happening around us. Be present, be in the moment. So I've given you a lot of instructions this episode. I feel I'm like, go out, meet a stranger, be present, be in the moment, show up and be 100% authentically you, 100% unapologetically you. So you'll know that and I don't know if you guys know this, but there are certain words that, Jamaicans sometimes will have challenges pronouncing, like my H's. So you'll hear it and, that's okay. It is what it is, right? But yeah, just be you. I'm not going to quote a cliche. I know I love cliches, but sometimes cliches are true, right? So just go ahead and meet a stranger, talk to somebody, and I would love to hear your feedback with what happened when you spoke to somebody. What happened when you said hi to the person who makes your coffee? What happens when you said hi to the person that waits with you at the bus stop? What happens when you say hi to the person who you ride share with an Uber? Oh, by the way, so I took an Uber with Trisha, the lady that I met in Atlanta. And that very night, when I was going back to the party that she had invited me to, I took an Uber twice. I downloaded the Uber app. So I'm feeling, yes, I understand 12-year-olds are taking Uber, but it was my very first time taking the Uber. The experience wasn't bad. I will say I got two very nice drivers. Downloaded the app and set it up and took my Uber 1, 2. So I'm a pro now. I'm a professional Uber taker at this point, right? But what if you just said hi? What if you smiled? What if you said hi to the person next to you at the red light? I'd be curious to see what would happen if you decided to say, I have never met a stranger, and I'm just going to be open. My posture is going to be welcoming. My face is going to be smiling. I promise you, great things can happen. Like I said, I had a great experience, even before the conference, just meeting somebody, had a connection, had a great time. And then at the conference, same thing, met so many great people. And I don't want to call all their names because I'm going to forget several names. I met two people named Summer. It was incredible. I met Jessica's, I met Brianna's, I met Monique's, I met, oh my goodness, just so many different people. And it's funny, like I remember some of their podcast name and things like that. So I'm not going to try and remember. I met Elsie and Jess. So, I mean, tons and tons of people that I met. I met Kimberly. See, I can't. Now I feel like I'm doing the DMX challenge, like calling all those names. But I met a lot of great women. I'm hoping that one day, no, I'm not hoping, I know that one day they will be on the show. So I also have to share. So I had my Beyonce moment this week, right? Yeah, if only. But for those of you, I've been doing the podcast for about almost 3 months now. And I was out at an event in my hometown, and I was talking to somebody who was going to be a guest on my show, and I was talking to them about being a guest, and there was somebody next to me. There was a young lady next to me, and she was like, "Oh, sit down with Suzanne." She's like, "I listened to that." I was like, "Oh." She's like, "Yes, I listened to it on my way to work in the morning." And I was like, oh my goodness, a genuine fan. And it was very exciting because, you start off with your friends and your family listening to you. And then there's other people who listen to your podcast, but, you don't know them. But then to actually, and, there's not my picture there. She didn't follow me on social media. She just, she listens to the podcast. And I said, well, how did you know about it? And she's like, a friend recommended it. And I don't even know her friend. So this person listened to it and then, told her about it, and she's listened to it, and she was excited to meet, the person who did it, and I was excited. I was like, oh my goodness. So yeah, that's my Beyonce moment. Like, so I mean, Beyonce might have a million fans and I have one, but I was very excited to meet, somebody that like didn't have a personal connection to me, but just found the podcast, listened to it, and liked it. So I thank you for that. I have a couple of episodes coming up that I'm so excited about. Like I was saying, the next I was talking to somebody who's going to be a guest on the show. And for those of you who know me, know how I feel about giving back and empowering others. So the next episode, my guest, this is what it's going to be all about. And I can't wait. It's going to be out next week. So stay tuned. Make sure you follow along. Make sure you follow me on social media. I am on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter as Positively Suzanne. I'm also on YouTube. I promise I'm going to get more consistent. We'll upload in my videos to YouTube. I will tell you, trying to navigate, the social media sphere with doing all the other things that I do is very challenging, but I'm committed to getting as much exposure and visibility and getting my name out there and just remaining consistent to, my fans. I know there's some people who are on Facebook that are not on Instagram, some people that are on Instagram that are not on Facebook and, Twitter and things like that. So if I have one fan on there and one fan on there, I believe that they deserve the same amount of attention as if I had 1,000 fan on there. So, but it's coming. I know I said 1,000, but it is coming. All right. So I'm going to become more consistent with posting and uploading to YouTube. So follow me on YouTube. Visit the website. I'm going to get some new content up there. And then listen to the podcast. Share the podcast. Tell your friends. If you have any questions or feedback, please shoot them to me over at Suzanne at positivelysuzanne.com. And I hope that you had fun with this episode. You know that every episode I seek to be positive. And the positive thing in this is it's not that scary to talk to a stranger, right? So I hope you were inspired. I hope you were empowered. And I hope you were motivated. Now remember, if you didn't get all three, I hope you get just one. So for this week, go out there, smile, be open, have a ball. Because you don't know who the next stranger will turn out to be. Until then, this is Suzanne saying bye-bye.